What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another dope edition of Define Your Legacy. I'm your host, Elijah McBee. And before we tap into today's episode, all right, just want to shout out the online store, Define Your Legacy, which can be found at the link in the description of this episode. All right, got t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeves, and a whole lot more. All right, can be found in the link in the description of this episode. All right, and just like that, we're gonna jump right in. All right, we're gonna jump right into the episode. We got Demetrius on the show. What's going on, man?
Hey man, listen, peace, King. I'm glad you invited me to come on to the show. I know we was going to connect sooner or later, but I'm glad to be here.
For sure, absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, it was only a matter of time. Conversation like the ones that we're getting ready to have are very, very important. So if you could, man, just introduce yourself and tell the world the value that you provide.
Got you. Okay, so I am a born and raised out of Hartford, Connecticut. I'm a husband, father, community, I would say investor. I'm a production manager as well in the aerospace industry. And I received my education from MCC and business administration. And business has always been a sort of space that I like to be in, and financial literacy and also credit, that had always intrigued me, even as a young child, just saving money and doing different things as far as being very well in terms of financial literacy. That was something that always interests me. So other things that I do as well, I also have two investment groups. One I have the hat on today. Prolific Society is a group of brothers who we joined together to join our funds and be able to purchase different things, different assets. Also, I have a new group that we just started called Ashe Investments. I'm one of the co-presidents. Our objective is to purchase real estate inside of our community to, as we know, a lot of the property and real estate that's in our community the ownership don't look like us. And we want to be able to implement a solution for that. And that's us joining together as a group. And, one of the biggest accomplishments that I have with my family is I am an owner of Madam's Beauty Supply with my wife and my children. They work in there as well. So me and my wife, we started that a few years back. So we own a beauty supply store, which another space where we don't dominate ownership in, but we dominate as being consumers. So that was another strategic move for us to go ahead and enter into that space. But a plethora of other things. I'm a great, I love to read. I'm an avid book reader. So I have a book club called Revolution of the Mind Book Club, where we join together and we pick a book every month and we read and just dissect the book and we just build together one page at a time. But I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, appreciate you for being on the show. So to break it down, right? Talk to me too about the couple of investment groups that you're in and how those kind of came about.
So those groups come about, right? Because I try to surround myself with people who like to build with other people. As they say, your network is your net worth. So what I like to do is I'm not a individual type of person. I know that in order for us to actually succeed as a community, it's not what the individual do, it's what we do collectively as a group. So in doing that, we have to actually put out solution steps for that. So that's us forming businesses, business entities where we can actually join our funds together to be able to purchase assets. Like I said, in Prolific Society, we're able to start where we purchase crypto. We purchase different stocks together. We have a vending machine business going, and we've also branching out to other different things as well. So any small startups that people want us to invest in, we actually look at that profile and see if it's a good investment for us. So this is just something that we got into and we want to build as a group. The other group, Ashe Investments, that's a real estate group, which that I love. In terms of real estate, I think that is a powerful building block in terms of transferring wealth and something that we haven't participated, I would say individually in a great space, but definitely as a group. I've seen so many people from other different groups that they were able to build, and they build off of something we're going to talk about, I'm sure, is other people money.
Yeah.
but also joining other people money and joining that together. If you look at some of the biggest corporations that we see every day, from ownership to basketball, football leagues, different companies, these groups, a lot of these groups have joined together based off of money from each powerful different players, and they were able to join that together. So that's sort of what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do that in the community, and be some of the first to do it, and also implement and show others in the community how we've done it, so we can be able to duplicate that actual success.
Yeah. And a couple of things that I've taken note of already. One, you use the terms community investor, right? The idea of having the home store with your wife as well as your family, and then being involved in two groups, right? So one thing that I've noticed is just the idea that with you, you're big on community and it's more than just you as an individual. But why is that the case for you, right? Like, why is it that you've decided to, combine forces in terms of other people's brain power as well as yourself, right? As opposed to just trying to figure out everything on your own.
Gotcha. That's a great question. Very great question. So what I picked up on through reading, there's a guy who's I call the godfather of economics, Dr. Claude Anderson, and he has a book called Powernomics. And I'm not a guy who tends to, I would say, retain information as quickly. But I'm a type of guy that I would write down notes. If I'm reading, I actually try to implement what I'm actually being taught. I try to implement that into my life right away. So that way I can just, boom, I can go ahead and apply it. And I know that can actually grow. So what Dr. Claude Anderson talks about is just basically, we operate in a team sport. When it comes to, we talk about racism, when we talk about the distribute of wealth, we operate in a team sport. And many times in our community, we haven't been taught how to operate as a team. So we figure that we can just operate as individuals. I can operate and, go ahead and do this individually and be successful individually. And we talk about individual success a lot. But that individual success really doesn't mean nothing if we're operating in a team sport. So we have to learn how to be able to operate together and be able to gain success together. Individual success is great. It's good. But we have to learn how to be able to operate together and be able to look at different problem solving skills, us being able to face difficult situations and being able to get through those tough times. We have to be able to do that. So I truly believe, right, that in order for us to succeed, in order for us to actually, as Umoja says, in order for us to come collectively together and to strive, we will only be able to do that as a group. So that is why I consistently try to build with others.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Considering everything that we've gone through as a people, I think if there's anyone, that should be on board with collaborating with one another in terms of our brothers and sisters, it definitely should be us, right? With the way society is, it's unfortunate, but we aren't always given the greatest advantages. So in terms of having to work with one another, I think that's very important. So what does the phrase collaboration over competition, what would you say that kind of means to you?
Great question. Again, I like that. So collaboration, right? Many hands make light work. And if we understand that, right, if we take that into a totality, where we understand that we're able to get great players on the board and be able to come together as a team and to collaborate, we can go a lot farther. We can go a lot further. We can go a lot farther. And we have different people who actually have different expertise in different divisions. We're not going to be great at everything, but you may have a strength that could be my weakness. I could have a strength that be your weakness. We can join together, right? And be able to start a company or to be able to start a group where, man, we can become dominant and powerful. We have to understand that. And when it comes to, collaboration over competition, we have to look at it as like us, brothers, sisters, families inside of our community. We can't look at each other in terms of competition, because that is not a way that if we're actually trying to win, if we're actually trying to actually make some progress, we can't look at each other as competition. And I think we have been, and I don't blame anybody, right? But we have been conditioned to look at each other as competition. And that is something that we have to break and understand, that collaboration is the only way we'll be able to make some progress and, attain some of the successes and the goals that we actually want to reach.
Yeah. And part of this, I think, collaboration too. The good thing about it is that you're now being exposed to other people's mindsets, right? The idea of like, okay, what I don't know, if I'm around other people, now I can be informed, right? And I think
Yes.
one of the biggest topics that tend to happen is this idea of debt. And you mentioned OPM and other people's money. So break that down for us a little bit too. Your thoughts on utilizing other people's money.
Right. Definitely. And I want to piggyback too on what you just said, right? And when we come into those groups, you talked about we have to be open to other people as well. Many times that we have put into in that individual mindset, right? We don't come from a culture of individualism. We have to break out of that. So when you go into certain groups, right, you have to be open and understanding that, hey, you know what, this sister or this brother, I got to come in with open arms and understand that they may have something of value. A lot of times we don't actually present and come into the presence of somebody understanding that they may have something of value. We come in the presence as, look, I'm trying to compete. And if you're trying to compete, you got that wall up, right? You got that wall up where you got that front seven and you're trying to come in with a blitz. I can't even enter you. I can't even give you any type of information for us to actually build or for you to actually grow, because you'll always have up the defense mechanism. And that's that competition thing. So yes. So the OPM, other people's money, I think that is truly important. That is something that we haven't tapped into enough. And I think it's something that we should and that we're going to do. When you're using other people's money, right? And they've had, I won't even say the president's name, but we talked about in the media with certain presidents where they have gone bankrupt in certain things or whatever. But one thing we don't understand a lot is that, that person didn't go bankrupt. Some of that person businesses has went bankrupt. And see, they was able to use other people's money in those different businesses, so that when they pay themselves, when they make actual equity, they have that individual, they do very well. But if a certain business actually collapse and they actually have to fold, using other people's money, that business may go away. You can still continue to be successful, and you could be able to work into courts with that other business and ratify whatever you have to do. So using other people's money is something that I do all the time. I mean, to put it in layman's terms, I don't want to use my money. You know what I mean? You have to be able to show the bank that you actually have assets, right? That you actually have money of your own, but you want to be able to use other people's money in order to actually fund your businesses and the opportunities and build on top of those things. And that way you can be able to leverage.
But someone out there listening to this may be scared to use other people's money, right? Or they may not know why it's important to use other people's money, right? They may say, like, I don't want any debt, right? I don't want to use anyone else's outside of my own cash, which I don't agree with. But in your defense, what would you say to that person? What would you say to someone who says, you know what, I don't ever want to use anyone else's money but my own?
Yeah, you know what? You mentioned something, and in terms of that person possibly being scared, you should be scared, right? You should be scared. And I've seen people, right, where they be able to access certain funds and other people's money, but they really don't have a good plan for it. And what they do is they allow themselves to get into a certain amount of debt that they can actually get themselves out of. So you actually should be scared. A little bit of scared is good for that moment, but you want to make sure that you have a plan to be able to use the OPM, the other people's money. So yes, I understand, people want to be scared in terms of using other people's money. They want to use their own. And people have been great at that, doing that as well. But listen, if I could actually have my money, right, and I could possibly go on vacation, I could take my family over here, I can do all sorts of other different things with my money and still able to establish my business and making sure that your business plan and that you're being profitable in your business, because that's another thing. There's a lot of businesses that are out there, but they're not profitable. So if you're profitable and you're able to use other people's money, you can pay them back and also pay yourself off of the actual profits and still keep your money.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point too. Like, I think when you use other people's money, it's important to have a plan, right? There is a comma at this, right? Like, I want to use other people's money because I have a plan with it, right? So, but that's another thing too. A lot of people do use credit cards and use other people's money, but they don't have a plan, right? So talk to me too about the downfall of just running up a credit tab over and over again without any form of cash flow or income. If you've already been approved the credit, of course.
Right. So in terms of that, that's us being able to access certain different funds, and we don't actually know what to do with it, or we don't know how to actually disperse those funds into making profit, really. So when you actually go into debt, right, you go into debt because you had no plan for the actual funds. That's a huge problem. So before you take on that debt, before you take on other people's money, you have to have a plan. You have to have a strategic plan. So what I normally do, right? I actually, before I take on some debt, I have to have a strategic plan that I know that I'll be able to turn an actual profit. And within this plan, I bring it to the brightest minds that are on my team so that I can be able to present this plan to them. And I want to get an analysis and to see what do they actually think about the plan before they actually use the money. Because many times we are given these credit cards, right? Sometimes if you're a student, sometimes you'll go to the colleges and I heard they had these things like laid out for you, where you could be able to open up a credit card and it actually puts you in debt. And now they're making, this is a business for them. We got to understand that as well. Putting you in debt is a business, a billion trillion dollar business for them. So they want to put you in debt, but you want to be able to use that within a smart way. And we have to start to learn this at a younger age. So as I talked about being a student, being a college student, and they're laying out these college cards for you, my children, right? And the people within my community that I speak to, they already have credit cards. My children already have credit cards and they know how to use them responsible. So when they go ahead and somebody present them with a credit card, they can say, you know what? Oh, I already have a credit card. No, thank you. And I actually know how to actually use the credit card because now guess what? They came with an actual plan. They came with somebody that actually taught them how to actually use other people's money in the correct way to leverage yourself.
And if that's a great point. If you don't mind, at what age did you start doing this for them?
Ooh, they was very young. I think my son was probably maybe six or seven, where we started to talk about funds and we started to talk about like money, period. I started them very young with just putting coins up on the refrigerator, teaching them about money, teaching him about actually purchasing stocks, opening up accounts and things like that. So you want to teach them very, very early. And there's credit cards, right, where you can actually start to put your children on them at a very, very young age. So in that way, as we want to transfer wealth, we know that credit is another term of building wealth. You can actually transfer that wealth power over to your children. And you can do that at a very young age as well, which I have done with my children.
Yes. Blessings to you on that, because the reason why I say that, because nowadays, like, we're in a world where people might say like, oh, you shouldn't teach them so young, or let them be children. I don't think it's about talking to your kids about stocks 24/7, but like if it's not done at the household, where is it going to happen? Right. Like where exactly do we expect the world to just randomly teach our children about stocks and life insurance and credit and all that? So to me, it has to be us. Right. I don't think we should continue to put the blame on everybody else if we ourselves aren't taken care of and having the dialogues with our own people.
Right.
To your credit, you started doing that. So now when they get to be the age of a college student, they'll be powerful. So what does that mean to you to now know that you've been a part of their already future?
Yes. We have to take accountability. I'm a huge accountability person. And people exercise me as far as an accountability partner, because in terms of that, I don't really have no wiggle room or no play with that. We have to take accountability of our children. We have to take accountability of our community and actually what's going on. And, use whatever you know to the best of your knowledge and actually just continue to grow every day. So there's a game that's being played, whether we want to play it or not. There's a magnificent game that's being played in terms of credit. And if you don't want to play it, Cool. You can do like what some people do to me now. When they come to me for credit advice is when they actually need it. And that's actually too late.
Mm.
So we want to actually start to build this thing early as possible. So my children can tell you, when should you pay your credit card? And we're going to be talking about this at the event today, right? And we speak to this to older people who's 30, 40, 50 years old. And they'll tell them, oh yeah, we got to just pay it by the due date. And they said, no, there's a certain thing called your statement closing date that you actually should be paying your credit card by, because that's actually what's reported to your actual credit bureau. So these are things that they actually know. They'll tell you, hey, if your credit limit, right, whatever your credit limit is, they say, hey, divided by 10. Divided by 10, that's your new credit limit, because we want you to actually stay under that 10%. So these are things that they are actually able to calculate. These are things that they can calculate on their actual credit limit right now, and they can go in and look and exercise and do it, because knowledge is not power. You have to apply that knowledge in order to it to come to be power. So we have to go into the system, be able to break the system, apply this knowledge, and for our children and for our community to be able to use it.
Yes, I agree with that. Applied knowledge is power, because it doesn't really matter what it is that you know, right? You read all the books in the world, watch all the YouTube videos in the world, but if you're not using it, right? If you're not using the knowledge that you just gained, it may not be as powerful as you might think, right?
Absolutely.
So, but you also mentioned the idea of credit limit too, right? So let's even break that down, right? How to really build your credit and improve your score and all that. So for those that may not know, right, the idea of what your current credit limit is, right? Let's just use a basic number of $1,000, right? We're using that just for simple calculation so that everyone, math wise can know what it's like. So if you have $1,000, right, and you want to use 10%, right, that's the traditional number that people should stay within.
Yes, well, it depends. It depends, right? Do you want to be Kobe or Jordan, right? or do you want to be like a Gilbert Arenas? You want to have like I don't know what level that you want to actually go to. So if you try, most people, right? Most people, they like, look, I like to watch the game. I like to see greatness, and I want to bring the greatness out of myself. So if you want to be great, you want to stay under that 10%. So I have an 800 credit score. And, if you want to be in the high 700s, 800s, you want to stay under that 10%. So if you got $1,000 limit, you want to make sure on that closing date, right, that when they report that you're not going over that $100. Now, if you want to be, I don't know, maybe a Charles Barkley, he was nice, right? But he ain't got no rings.
Yeah.
He ain't got no rings. So if you want to be nice, maybe you want to be nice, right? You say, you know what, I just want to get a 700, maybe a 700 credit score. Then maybe, you'll do the 20%. You're staying at 20% or whatever. And, you can get to maybe the 700 range, maybe in the high 600s, which, the 700 range is cool. You're going to be able to get a lot of things that the 800 credit scores are able to get too, but you're not going to get no rings. So why not just shoot for the best? So if you want to shoot for the best, stay in 10% of that actual credit limit when they're reporting to the credit bureaus.
Yeah. And a lot of people say 30%, but I'm to your point too with 10. Honestly, on low key, I would say 5.
Yes.
For me, again, I think it all depends on like what your overall limit is and your number and all that. But the lower the better, right?
Yes.
But I think the number 30% gets tossed around so often when we talk about overall credit limit. But I think the number probably should be closer around 5. And some people may even say even lower than that. But it's the idea of like we're getting there, right? We're getting to that point of, okay, let's lower from 30 to 25, 25 to 15, 15 to 10.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like for some people, it may take time. And again, like y'all, I use the example of $1,000 just because 10% of 1,000 is 100 for simple math, But if your number is 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, whatever the case may be, mathematically, right? It's all still percentage wise.
And let me say this too. And I meant to say this in the beginning. Now, what I'm telling you and what the people are hearing from me is how I was able to obtain my credit score. So there'll be people that'll listen to this and say, hey, you know what? I think you could do it this way. I think you could do it that way. And they're probably right. You know what I mean? But only thing I can tell you is from my experience and from actually helping other people of what we were able to do. And that's the only story that I can be able to give you. So I have an 800 credit score. My wife has a very high credit score, and my children, they're already building within the top range of their credit score already. So I can only tell you from my experience and what actually works for me, because I've seen, and I've been in actually credit seminars where I've heard other people that actually are good at building credit. And I've heard them say 50% to somebody, and I had to like correct them. And I'm like, no, like, you don't,
Yeah. No.
you don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah, no, 50 is,
yeah.
we're good. But
Right.
so let me ask you this though.
Mhm.
Do you believe that someone, and again, obviously all this, y'all, is based off your personal situation, continue to do your research. None of this is specific financial advice. But like, do you feel, let's say again, using that $1,000 example, if someone were to use 60%, right, use $600, but pay it off until it's 10% by the due date or the closing date, is that fine? So like, let's say, right?
I do it all the time.
Right, you use more, but when it's time to pay it off, that's when the number should be 10% or 15 or whatever, of the overall.
Yeah, I love it. It's the game. It's the game that got to be played.
Yeah.
When you look at people that understand credit, there's a level of information, right? There's levels that you have to obtain. Many of the people like myself who has a high credit score, I try to actually charge as much as I can. I don't exercise this, and I don't tell this to everybody, because using financials, right? It's a game. You got to understand how to use the game, but you also have to have discipline. And that's something that has to be built over time. So I'm a very disciplined person. So I can charge the bulk of my regular monthly expenses onto my credit card, right? And I actually pay that off before my closing date, and making sure that at least that is under that 10%. And now the other date, the deadline date, right? You want to make sure that you're actually using that time period, because now you want to get into the rewards and everything like that. If you want to actually benefit from the rewards, you want to make sure that those things are paid off and that you're not actually being charged any interest, because then, I don't get into the credit rewards game as much, but when I tell people, right, there's a lot of people out there that feel like they're benefiting off the rewards, but on the back end, they're paying an interest because they're carrying a balance every single month.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Like, if you're going to use credit and stuff, especially if it's a credit card, you probably shouldn't carry like an OD balance and end up paying interest, right? I think the benefits of using credit card is the cash back, but once you start paying interest, no, we don't do that. Right. But that's nothing too though, right? So even if you're a person that you feel like, okay, you're not big, either care too much about the cash back, or like that's just not a crazy benefit for someone, what would you say the biggest benefit is of using a credit card?
I would say, if you're disciplined, I would want you to use the actual cash back and the rewards. It could be very lucrative for you if you know how to use it. But in terms of the benefits of using your credit, this is one of the things that most of us has used to actually start to build their foundation on credit. And when I first started to build my credit, I had got and this is what a lot of people would need to use, is a secured credit card. When I first started building, I think my credit score was at, maybe this was 2006. I think my credit score was at like a 500 or something. And I got a secured credit card. And what that means is basically it's not like a traditional card, but you would actually give them an actual deposit of your money, and that money will become your new limit. And so now, after about 6 months, when you show that you can actually manage your credit limit that you've made over a period of time, they will actually send you back that amount plus interest, and now you'll get a traditional card as well. They'll turn it into a traditional card. So that's how normally a lot of people will start to build their credit. So in terms of building the credit, that's one of the pluses of having an actual credit card. But also too, right, if you want to, it all depends on your goals. If you want to actually get a house, if you want to actually start to purchase assets, if you want to actually, as far as like our group, there's certain things, right, where we'll have to meet with a lender. And if we want to actually purchase a large asset, one of the things that they're going to do is they want to see the members, they want to see your actual profile. And if you have a good personal credit score, now they'll say, okay, you know what? This, in all credit scores, is trust. Is can I actually trust you in the financial market? So now if they can actually trust you and now you're trying to build as a group, they can say, you know what? I believe that, we can trust these people in this group, and we could actually give them this asset so that we can be able to start to build wealth even more. So there's a plethora of things, of things that you can benefit from from a credit card.
Yeah. And a part of that trust that you mentioned is history, right?
Yes.
Just the overall, like, you've been doing this for a while. So talk to me as well about the idea of starting as early as possible, or sooner rather than later, right? Because in order to, prove that you can pay, your bills on time, you got to start a little bit earlier. So what does that mean too in the overall process? It's the idea of starting as soon as possible.
Start as soon as possible is vital. That's a large part of what makes up your actual credit score and your credit profile. Credit profile. And excuse me, you want to actually, basically, if you can start as early as possible, right? My children have started early. They've got into the game very, very early because I was able to put them on my cards as an authorized user. So they're starting really early in the game. So really the best time to start is years ago, but the second best time to start is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to actually start building that credit right now, if you can, and that's what they're going to actually use. And two things too, right, is since history is so important, never close your old accounts. Never close your old accounts. You want to keep those things open, and you want to make sure, right, that you're actually making a transaction here and there. You don't want to basically just leave it. I leave a lot of my credit cards in the drawer, and I don't use them. But every now and then, maybe every 3 months, I'll do a small transaction and then just go ahead and pay it off, just so I can keep that history going, 10, 15, 20 years, I can keep that history going. And the second thing is that I know that this is about credit, but another thing too is, there's a saying, don't sell grandma's house. Don't sell granny house, man. This is a history. This is a wealth builder that can be passed on, throughout time. And there's different leveraging techniques that you could be able to use. A lot of things that I've learned from my brother Malik Chamblee. He has a company where he goes out and talk about how to leverage. But keep grandma house. Don't close the old credit card accounts, and don't transfer grandma deed on that house. Keep that house.
So why is it that you say that though, right? Not to sell granny's house.
Well, I would say not to sell granny house and not to close those cards, because there is a certain thing called leverage. And once again, this is something I learned from one of the things Malik Chamblee has taught me, was depending on where the market is at, right? You can be able to tap in to that wealth. And throughout time, real estate seems to project to go up. And as this actual asset gain value, you can tap into that asset and be able to refinance and pull money out. So if you can pull money out, you can pull money out to, guess what? To start that new business. You can pull money out to maybe one of the grandkids got a great business, right? Maybe you want to be a Shark Tank to one of the grandkids. This is money that you can be able to use and be able to tap in where you actually become the bank. So that's one of the powerful reasons why you never want to sell grandma house.
And something like that, obviously you're talking about granny and this idea of generations, right? So how do you feel? What's your thoughts on young people getting it out the mud, if you will, right? The idea of young people having to learn all this stuff either on their own and that being like glorified, right? Like nowadays, people don't want things either passed down to them or like, it's almost like it's a bad thing, or it's viewed as a bad thing for young people to be given certain things from their family members. But in reality, I think that's how generational wealth is built, right?
Yeah.
Like I think we should give our children a head start. Again, if there's any race and ethnicity where that should be appreciated, it's us like that. I think that should be the norm, not like oh, don't give your children anything. So what are your thoughts on that? Just idea of giving, your children a head start.
Right. You said I laugh because as you said, like the getting it out of the mud, because I don't, I get it, right? I understand it. And there's a time and place for that. There's a time and place where you got to be able to get it out of the mud. And I think sometimes people say that is because many people really don't know how to get it out of the mud. When they actually when the face is covered in mud, when things get tough, when the balance sheets doesn't look right, when the customers doesn't come in, or the projections, you didn't meet your projections, things get really tough. They don't actually know how to go in the tank and get it out of the mud. And I think that's a lot of times that's where that term comes from. But that's supposed to be like a reserve tank. We've been riding on E for a long time. We ain't got nothing. We always got to get it out of the mud. So I laugh because I think about a time I was having a conversation with a brother, and he asked me because I said something that he felt was interesting, because he said that, he was trying to do a lot of things, get it out of the mud. He was trying to do A, B, and C. And I told him, I said, and he was trying to do all of these things by himself. And I told him, I said, I don't do anything by myself. Nothing. Why would I? If I could actually use resources, use other people's money, if I could be able to join forces with somebody else, why would I waste time on just trying to get it out of the mud if I don't have to? That's exhausting my strength. You only have a limited ability to actually make decisions. And as you make those decisions, right, you actually have a fatigue that starts to set in. I want to be able to use my strength on the highest things, right, that I'm actually truly needed for. But if I can pay somebody else to be a virtual assistant, or to actually help me, bring me to a certain goal, and to get them on my team to be able to show me how to actually do something, I'm going to do it. I'm trying to actually go to the mud as least as possible. As least as possible, right? But I know, right? I know, and other people know that when it comes time to actually get it out of the mud, oh, I'm a dog. I can go ahead and get it out of the mud with the best of them. But I don't. I've actually, right, as I've increased my network of people around me, I've always stated, and I use this term, that I have great friends. I have great friends around me. And I've done that strategically, because many times you will hear people talk about, my family is not great. My family sucks. My friends, they're not good. Well, that's your fault. That's your problem. You can't pick your family, but you pick your friends. So I choose to pick my friends, and I choose to pick my friends wisely. And I have a great group of friends. And guess what? And I mentioned this in another interview. You know who some of my great friends are? Chase, Wells Fargo.
It's so funny. I was getting ready to say the bank. I promise you. I was getting ready to say the bank. In my head, I'm like, you're going to say the bank. I promise you. I promise you I will. I had a feeling it wasn't going to be a name. I had a feeling it wasn't going to be like a person, or like, I had a feeling you'll say big. I promise you.
Oh man, yes, man, you got it.
Yeah.
Mind. So some of my favorite people, man, they're Chase, they're American Express. They're people that I can actually, I don't even have, right. It's actually easier being friends with them, right? Because there's no emotional attachment, there's no emotional bond. They just give me something, and as long as I agree to the terms, there's no problem. Guess what? And they don't want no equity. They don't want no royalties. They don't want nothing. Hey, you actually tapped in. You called me up and you said you need this. I did my checks. They checked my credit score, checked my income, and they said, hey, we're going to give you this or whatever. Pay it back to us under these terms. We don't want no ties to anything. Just pay us back. Those are some of the best friends to actually have. In terms of finances, those are some very great friends, and I've depended on those friends, right? And but I had to build trust. And that's what credit scores are. That's what the credit profile is. But one thing about this, right, is and I shared this with a group of young people who are trying to build credit, is when things get hard, you can't tuck your tail and hide. When things get tough, right? Because you're going to face a very difficult time We've all faced those. So when you face those times, call up the lender. Call up the lender and make sure you call them and let them know that you got a plan. But call up, don't have them having to come to look for you. That's a problem. That's when you get in trouble. That's actually when you get those late payments. You can avoid late payments. You can actually avoid things going on in your credit report if you actually reach out to your lender. But see, we've developed this certain characteristic where we run and hide from problems. Well, no, you need to face the problem, call up those lenders and say, look, this is what I'm going through right now, you know what, but I plan to do this. And can we go ahead? And most of the time, they'll work with you.
Yeah. And, you know, I even going back a little bit to the bank part, I think if there's anyone that you should care about how they view you, it's the bank, right? Like so often we want to impress other people and have them think of our financial situation as being great. But like, you should care about what the bank thinks about you. You should care about what your employer thinks about you. Why is that? Because those people are paying you, right? Those people are able to put you in a better financial situation. But everyone else that you might come across on IG, your friends, like if they're not contributing to your overall financial well-being, who cares? But the bank, I want the bank to think highly of me. Yeah. Right. Like I want, if I'm giving somebody my resume, I want them to think highly of me because I know that in return, there's going to be money added to me. You shouldn't care what other folks that aren't paying you think of
man, that's powerful.
You know,
and let me say something about that too. So in terms of that, right? You know, and I have great friends, you know, physical friends, and that's why I have so many different groups and people who I actually network with. But diversification is very, very important to me. So, you know, my friends, right? I'm not perfect. I may do something that my friends just like, you know what? I ain't feeling this guy right now. You know what? I'm not dealing with him. So maybe they want to pull something, but I got another set of friends, right, that I could be able to count on that I don't have an emotional attachment with. So you want to be able to diversify. And what I mean in terms of diversification, in terms of building credit, right? And this is actually a real life example that actually happened to me. And when you have credit cards, you should have more than one. Now, this goes into the topic of, we talked about a lot of times where people get scared, where they you know what, all right, if I'm going to get a credit card, you know, I'm only going to get one. And I always told people, you know, get 1 to 3 credit cards. I have more, you know, I don't have to disclose, but I have a lot of different friends. I have a lot of different credit cards spread across the board. But I always say get more than one, get 2 or 3. And the reason why, right? This is actually the bank's money. We talked about how much the history counts on your credit report. So when I started building my credit, I opened up a couple cards at a time. One of those was Capital One, and I had a long history with them. But after about 10, I think about maybe like the 10-year mark, guess what Capital One decided to do? They decided to close the card out of nowhere. And guess what? They don't have to give you no reason or explanation why. They just actually closed the card out of nowhere. And if I didn't diversify my friends, right? If I didn't diversify those cards, if I didn't have a Discover card, if I didn't have, you know, the other credit cards that I had at the time that I started building my credit early, you know, I would have put all my eggs into one basket. All that history that I had built into that one card would have been gone. So that 800 credit score that I had, that credit score would have dropped because I put everything into this one actual lender. So that's why my recommendation is for you to get at least 2 to 3 cards.
And you never asked why, or like there was never a reason why they closed it? Because that sounds odd. Like,
yeah,
it's because.
Yeah, it's very odd. And you know, I actually called them and, you know, tried to get an answer, you know, I'm saying all the right things. You know, I built up and established credit and trust over so many years. And you know what? They just said, you know, we want to close it. But the point is they can do that. They can do that. It's their bank, it's their money. And you want to make sure you're not susceptible to actually just one lender. So definitely diversify your friends, diversify your banks, diversify your lenders, and the people in your network. Diversify your network as well.
But you know what, though, and I'm with you on that, right? Having more than one card. I think people should have more than one credit card just because of the difference of the due date and that closing date, right? Just the idea of like, okay, now you're in that limbo area where like you might need another card, but you don't want to spend on the other one because this one is about to close. So
Right.
the idea of having multiple is good.
Right.
But I also want to ask too, so why do you say diversify banks? All right, what if someone was very comfortable having, again, 2 or 3 credit cards, but just with the same bank? They don't want to, deal with this one. Like they want play this. They like to have friends, but all friends that, grew up in the same household, if you will. They don't want to, be with, more than one bank at a time, but have multiple credit cards. So what's the good thing I feel about diversifying banks when it comes to that?
Right. During the time that we kind of live in now, where you can live in a cancel culture, a lot of times we build relationships with actually people at the actual bank, and that can actually open up doors for us. Those people can actually do something where they actually end up losing their job. That bank, that establishment, we had things that happened, I believe, with I think it was Wells Fargo, where there were some things that was racially that actually happened. So, you could have put all of this now into a sort of establishment like this, and you see certain practices happen, and now you're at the mercy of that. So now what are you going to do? I'll tell people, right? You want to stay ready. You don't want to have to get ready. So diversify your people, diversify your different business association and those banks, because you never know what can actually happen. And I have a lot that's riding on me personally. So if I have a lot that's riding on me, I have to make sure I spread out. I have to make sure I spread out my actual resources, because I know as an investor, as a good fiduciary of my funds and the leader of my family, I have to actually do that.
And you mentioned one thing slightly before that I want to touch on too, was the income piece, right? So how important is it to have at least some sort of income or cash flow, whatever, when you're first applying for the credit card? Because of course, banks like to see that, you can make money, right? And in addition to being able to pay off bills, they want to see that, they're giving it to a person that may be able to pay it off. So how important is income?
I think that's a very good question. And my answer will probably not be what you think it is. In terms of actually starting your building your credit, your income really don't matter too much. It really don't. And I'll say this, right? Because and you want to be doing it within the right way, but there's really no checks and balances to, like, when you're opening up a credit card, they may ask you how much your income is, and you can give a good estimate, right? A good estimate of what you feel like you're going to be making throughout the year. But there's really no true big checks that they'll actually do on your income, especially when you're just starting out. Now, when you start to get into a field where you're making towards that different level of investments or the different level of asset classes, there's going to be some checks and balances towards what you actually make on the income level. And that's when it'll actually be very important. Banks want to see that you have a steady income actually coming in. And this goes and ties back into what we talked about, having a plan. You can be wanting to start a business. It may not be a great business plan. It may not be something that's going to be really be profitable. And this is something that the banks are going to be looking at. So if you put all of this time, you put all of this leverage, you put all of this other people money into this actual dream or this actual business, and it actually doesn't turn out, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good to people that actually come and you're going to them and you want to actually make bigger investments. They're going to look at that balance sheet. And they're going to say, look, you know what? You're not being a good fiduciary in your funds and your investments. So you know what? There's a lot of risk there. That debt to income ratio, right? And this is what they look at in terms of purchasing larger assets. That debt to income ratio is too high. When you get over that 35%, that starts to look very dangerous for them. So you want to actually keep that low, but you want to actually keep that income high and keep it moving up as well.
So basically, continuing to make money will overall help someone in terms of their overall appeal to getting a higher credit limit.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Just the idea of like, well, if you make more money, that'll definitely help in the overall, with that.
It'll help, but to also talk about this too, right?
Yep.
Somebody can make less money than you. Somebody can actually have 2 credit cards and you got 10. And they could be doing better on paper than it actually looks like. So they can be doing better in terms of when they show a credit score, their credit score can look actually higher than yours. Just because you make more money than me doesn't mean that you're actually taking that money home, and it doesn't mean that you're actually managing that income well. So somebody who's making a lot less than you can be managing their actual credit because they actually came with a plan and they actually been taught and learned how to manage that actual credit profile a lot better than you. And contrary of belief, there's many people who make on more of a lower income, and credit scores are higher than people that are high income. Why? Because they spend. The more you make, the more you spend. They just become bigger consumers. Doesn't mean that their credit score or their credit profile are actually larger.
Yeah. And that's what we always say is kind of the danger of making more money is like lifestyle inflation, right? When you
Yes.
start to get a raise or get more money, naturally you start thinking to yourself, all right, I'm making some more money. So I could, I get a little bit more active in terms of spending. But sometimes in reality, if you can make more money, but keep your expenses the exact same or decrease them, I think you're going to be even more powerful. But yeah,
Yes.
to your point too, like just the idea of, people who may make less are more like firm with their decision making in terms of spending because they realize every single dollar, right, is going to matter. But it's funny you mentioned that too as well because it reminds me like when I was applying to college, I used to go to like on tours and stuff, and they used to ask which one is better to get an A in like a regular class or to get a B in one of those higher up classes. And you know what? A lot of admission counselors used to say, getting an A in the higher up class, as if to say, literally do the best of both worlds. So like to me, the idea of making more money as well as keeping your debt low, if you can manage to do both of those and not just be one or the other or
Yes.
either or, you're a dangerous human being. But that's tough. That
Yes.
can be challenging.
That's very tough. And then you know what too? We have to learn, and we don't talk about this so much. And you hinted on this topic just now. We have to learn how to actually, as our income goes up, right? Our intellect, our knowledge has to go up. So as we make more, our expenses actually needs to come down. And I have been able to do this personally myself, been able to actually keep my expenses down. I live in the community. Me and my wife and family, we could be living in one of those big old houses and all of that stuff, but that wasn't our goal. We came in with a strategic plan. Our expenses are very, very low. We have very high credit scores. So our mortgage is our mortgage is very, very low. So, we have actually, our income has went up, but our expenses have actually went down. And that's an art. As you said, like that's an art. And that's something that we need to talk about a little bit more inside of our community as well.
But why is that though? Because we really got to break that down. I really want to break that down. Just the idea of why have you all decided to remain living in a humble lifestyle, right? Because to your point, it's easier for people to change once they've made money or once, things have just overall changed in their overall lifestyle. Especially, I feel like, as a man, right? If you're in a relationship and now you're like actually being married, right? What is it that you all have either agreed upon, if you don't mind me asking, of course?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Agreed upon that made it like, all right, you know what? We have a goal in mind, right? Or you all know that, okay, we could be doing other things, but instead we want to remain locked in on our mindset of just overall generational wealth and building for us.
I love it. You asking some good questions, brother. Listen, this interview is about to turn up a little bit because we will go into a little bit of relationships, right?
Yeah.
Because my wife, right? I did a great job, but that was God. That was God.
Respect.
But look, my wife, sometimes we go and we pick our partners, and that partner can be high maintenance. And if that partner is high maintenance, it's going to cause a problem in terms of your finances. And for you to be able to actually increase your income and keep your expenses low. Since my wife she's not a high maintenance type of person, and I'm very disciplined. So we actually work together very, very well. So that's one of the ways, right? You have to pick a good partner. And that's very, very important. If you don't pick a good partner, your income and your expenses is going to fluctuate. And many times it's actually going to go up. So if my wife was high maintenance, right? When our income went up, she would have been like, look, I'm getting out of it. I'm getting out of this community. Like I want the BMW. I want the Mercedes. We were just talking about this today, right? With different people around us, right? They got to get the new 2020 car, 2022 car, and they got the high expenses. And my wife is telling, like, my wife is very good as far as income wise, and we're good as a whole. But some of the people that she deal with, their income and expenses are just so crazy. And she's like, I drive just a regular car. I just got to get to point A and point B and do whatever I got to do. I don't need those big type of things. That actually, right, is a unique point, because now our assets and our wealth can continue to grow over time. But another reason why I do this too, right, is because I'm always keeping into mind, right, of recessions, of things like COVID. If I lost my job, right, my job as the leader, right, if I lost my job today, we have kept our expenses so low, we'll be fine. We'll be good based off of the assets that we have built over time, based off of business, based off of the things that we can do on a bare minimum level. We'll be fine and be able to take care of our essentials. But not if we move, not if we got that big old mortgage, not if we got that $500 car note with that big tax bill that's going to be coming as well, and that large insurance bill that you're going to have to pay for that car. Not if we done that. So we've kept our expenses low. So when a recession or when a tough time come, we'll be able to make it throughout that as well.
Yeah, that is a very, very important point. Like, one of the biggest reasons why I feel like people should save their money as opposed to spending it on expensive things is because of that. The idea of what happens if things go left, right? Because you might look really, really crazy if you just bought a crazy car or a wild set of, clothes or sneakers or whatever. Then God forbid, 2 days later, you lose your job, right? Or 2 days later, something bad happens to your house. And again, we've noticed over these past 3 years, these are real things.
Yes.
Right? So it's not even always about saving money and investing it into stock instead of buying a certain pair of shoes. It's more of like, yo, you might look very, very wild spending your money on all that stuff, knowing deep down, and if you like 2 words can change your entire life. You know what I'm saying? So like, ain't pocket watching, but just be careful anyone out there. Like, your life can really change instantly, and it can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone, right?
Yeah. No, I think you gotta clip that part, because I think that's one of the most important gems that can be dropped, man. Just being able to understand that tough times, right? It's not if, but when they're going to come, they're going to happen. So when they happen, can you actually rise above? Can you actually still, right, remain and be peaceful? That's a really important word. Remain peaceful in your life. And if you got all these expenses, or you're going to have a lot of chaos that's going to come. So we're able to be peaceful amongst the chaos because we can keep our expenses low. And we're not high maintenance. We're not high maintenance people.
What would you tell to a young couple, though, that may be high maintenance? Whether it's a young brother dealing with, his partner being high maintenance, or vice versa. If a young sister that's, dealing with someone that's high maintenance, what advice would you give them?
Go to therapy.
Facts though. Because love and money sometimes it don't always go hand in hand.
No, money is one of the highest things when it comes to divorces and things not working out, and especially in our community, right? We are in a very unique situation. Many times the sisters are making more than we're making, which can cause a lot of different friction in different people's households. And you brought up a great topic just now, because maybe this is something that me and my wife should be talking about even more inside of the community, because there were times where my wife made way more than I did. There were times where I made way more than she did, but we always just worked together as a team. And many times, especially young couples, but I've seen this even with older couples, that actually don't happen. And therapy helps. Therapy is something, right, that we should actually pursue in the beginning, and not in the middle where things start to get tough, or at the end where you're trying not to sign those divorce papers or whatever. There's some things that can be figured out on a personal level. We're coming into these marriages, into these partnerships, marriages, group investment groups, all these different type of things. We're coming in with our personal baggage that we need to take care of on a personal level, go to therapy and try to deal with these things. So for a couple that's dealing with the high maintenance and maybe somebody's low maintenance or they're both high maintenance, this is something that you have to have a serious conversation about and understand the risk that are actually involved in keeping up this lifestyle. So it's a serious conversation, and I would recommend people, go to therapy and talk, right? This is so important. Talk with other people who have been married for a long time. That is, man, if you can just do that, right? If married couples need to have other married couple friends. When you have other married couple friends, they've been through a lot of the issues that you're going to actually go through. In terms of credit, right? Before you make a credit decision, before you go and get that, I know you mentioned this in some of our texts, before you go and get that hard inquiry, talk with somebody who knows about credit. Talk with somebody who has a 700, 800 credit score before you go ahead and make that decision, because they can actually save you a lot of money. They can save you a lot of heartache. They can save you time that it's going to take to get those hard inquiries to come off your credit report. Have good friends that you can reach out to. It can save you a lot of time and money.
Yeah. And start a podcast.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed at the people you'll meet. You'll be amazed at the people you meet. But you mentioned something that I want to ask you about too, and I'm glad you did. Hard inquiries. Right. So there's a difference, right, between soft pulls and hard. So what exactly do you feel like are hard inquiries that big of a deal? And I'm not even talking about like getting them taken off, right? But just the idea of like if someone may request an increase in limit, they may have to go the hard inquiry route. So what are your thoughts overall on that?
Great question. In terms of somebody looking for a credit limit increase, do your knowledge, do your research, find out, right? I actually posted this on my social media on Facebook and Instagram. Know who the partners are. Learn how they actually interact with their actual customers. There are certain banks who don't give you a hard inquiry when you ask for an increase. And I've put that on the list. I put a list of actual businesses, lenders who actually give you a hard inquiry and those who don't. So you want to actually know those, because those are the ones you want to open up an account with.
Yeah.
Because you know that, you know what, when I go and ask them for an increase, they're not going to be giving me this hard inquiry. So know and do your research on who those actually lenders are.
Yeah. And that's very important too, because once you start a credit card, obviously, like you said, you can close it, but it's not best to. But
and another thing too, and you mentioned, is like how important it is to understand about the hard inquiries. One hard inquiry can cost you, maybe between 5 to 10 points. Yeah. Especially if you get a second one. Sometimes you're shopping around for different things. If you're shopping around for a mortgage or certain different packages, one within a certain time period will be the same. But many times the stuff that we're searching around for, right? If you get 2 inquiries, that hard inquiry can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars just by lowering your credit score. So you want to actually make sure you be very strategic doing those hard inquiries. Another thing, and I'll share this tonight with the people who are going to show up, make sure your credit is on a credit freeze. And the reason why I keep my credit on a credit freeze, the reason why is because, fraudulent activity and identity theft is on a rise, and it's getting even crazier and crazier. It's happening to children along with adults. So you want to look at freezing your credit, because once somebody goes into your credit and they starts to cause havoc, there's going to be, it's tough. It eventually it can come off, but it's tough to get these things off. But why do that, right? Be proactive, stay ready, do a freeze on your credit. And so now what happens is when you personally want to go out and search and look for different things, you want to open up a relationship with the lender. Now you can take that credit freeze off, get what you need to get, and put it back on the freeze. And I'll give you two scenarios, right? One bank, I didn't do my research. And I didn't do my research in if they actually do hard inquiries. And when I actually went to go ask them for a credit limit increase, they were going to go ahead and pull, but I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and ask them. And when I asked them, right, it was too late. They had already pulled the credit limit increase or whatever. And I got the credit limit increase based off my credit status. But look, if I had the credit freeze on there, they wouldn't have been able to pull it. So now what happens, right? The ones that actually don't use a hard inquiry, they can go ahead, even if it's on a freeze, they can go ahead and they'll just go ahead and give you your increase if they feel like you're eligible for it. Another incident, I was actually at the dentist's office, and the lady, these people don't know about credit. These people that's even in your HR department, different people that's sitting down in these offices, many of them don't really know how credit works. So the lady, I had to get a root canal, and the lady went, she's like, oh, it's going to cost you such and such or whatever. And I'm like, fine. She was like, but we could just set you up with a payment plan with us or whatever. And she was like, if you want to do that. So I went and I said, all right, cool. I can set up a credit, not a credit, but just a payment plan with you guys or whatever. So little did I know, right? When she comes back, she says, oh, I have our credit service on the phone. They tried to pull your credit, but you have a freeze on it. And I said, I didn't give you permission.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, yeah.
I didn't give you permission to basically run my actual credit. And that's what I had to explain to them. But see, these people, they don't actually know. So luckily, right, I avoided having that hard inquiry because I had that credit freeze on there. And I said, look, I have credit. I have cards where I won't pay any interest if I try something. I could put that on my credit, pay it off or whatever like that, and do it from me to you. I don't need to use or open up a new credit lender in order to do that. So in order to protect yourself, you want to have that credit freeze in place. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. And that's tough too, right? You pay for something medical related and they run the actual, credit and stuff. It's not just like an informal payment plan kind of thing. It's like,
but
it can be separate.
These people, they make mistakes too. You would figure they would know, right? But even in the doctor terms, right, when you go into that, you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own lawyer. You have to be able to say, look, this is what I need to actually be done. So you got to advocate for yourself. And many of these people, they make mistakes, and some of them, they just don't know. But you have to know, because it's going to affect you and it's going to be on your credit report. And then it'll take some time in order to get those things off.
So I know also, right, you're hosting a credit class, right, and teaching the community how to build credit, how to improve their score and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about that.
So yes, we're doing a credit class today. We're going to be doing that from 5 to 7 at our store, Madam's Beauty Supply, 1390 Park Street. This is in Hartford, Connecticut. So we're just joining together. We try to do things like this because we practice Kwanzaa. And some of the principles are Umoja and Ujima. And I like Ujima because Ujima means making our brothers and sisters' problems our problems. And this is something with us coming together. We know that financial literacy is something that, we need to actually increase and do a better job in. And we know how impactful building credit can be and how it has been for us, even in terms of building a business. It has been very, very great. So we want to extend this to our community and to see other people grow and become better inside of this space. So I'll be speaking, my wife will be speaking, the kids will be speaking as well. So, you could bring the whole family. I'll bring the kids out. There's some different things that we'll be doing with them as well. And this will be, I think our third one. Our first couple ones, we focused on stocks with my son, who does well with purchasing his own stocks. And we'll be piggybacking up on that as well. But yeah, definitely come out, build. It's all about building relationships and networking and building your credit.
Yeah. Do you plan, or if you are doing anything virtual at all? I know this is an in-person one, but do you do anything virtual at all?
We might do some virtual coming up. Maybe we might announce something tonight where we'll do something virtual as well, because I have a lot of people outside of Connecticut. I tell people try to reach, man, make your reach across the country and across the globe if you can, to reach those people. So that's a great idea. We'll try to do something virtually as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Definitely got to keep in contact about that one as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, so obviously, you're gonna have people there attending the event talking about credit. So if you could right now, what's 2 tips that you have when it comes to credit, right? 2 benefits that you feel like people should know when it comes to credit, even if it's from a basic level 1, because like anytime we reset the room, we always got to remember that there's some people, this may be their first ever time hearing anything about credit, right? And for some people, it might be a refresher. So, what's 2 things you feel like everyone should know, right, about getting their credit right?
One of the things that I would, and this is just really simple, right? And this is something that, I could have done as a teenager, as a child, and people can do. There is somebody in your family who manage their finances well. And I know, we come from different type of community where we say, hey, we don't talk about finances enough. That's true. And that's true in my family as well. But there's always somebody inside of your family who possibly knows how to manage their finances. And if there's not, there's somebody else is in the community, there's an outreach. So I want you to seek, because whatever you seek, you'll actually find. So find that one person inside of your family. And trust me, when you find that one person, they're going to want to pour inside you, because it's been probably a lonely road for them. So when you reach out to them and say, hey, you want to learn more about finances, I can almost guarantee you they're going to pull you under their wing. They're going to want to teach you, and they want to actually see you do very, very well. So reach out to somebody in your family. There's somebody in your family that actually manage their finances well. I would say the second thing is get a credit card. That would be my first. Get a secure credit card, and listen to these podcasts, listen to come out to our viewing today at our store, get around some other people that are doing things like this, and learn how to be able to use those. I used honestly Google a lot. I researched, and it's free information out there. We just got to apply it. You could just Google this stuff up and say how to build credit as a beginner. There's going to be multiple of things that's going to pop up where you can learn different things on how to use. So use those resources. But like I said, knowledge is not power. You got to apply that knowledge in order for it to become power. So use that. Use those resources.
Yes, indeed. Use the resources, and remember that credit was meant to be used. All right. It's okay to have some sort of debt. Obviously, if you have a plan with it, don't just, use it and take advantage of it like that. But credit was really meant to be used. And I guess for me, 2 pieces of advice that I would have when it comes to credit is, stay with under 10%, of the overall limit, and make sure you make on-time payments. Like don't try and accumulate interest. Pay when you need to pay it. At the same time, stay under 10% overall limit.
Absolutely.
But, I asked that question to you about, you all hosting a class, because again, as we touched on in the beginning, it's a reminder of your efforts to help build up the community, right? And everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and everything that I know you're going to do, right? Even dating back to the investment groups, allowing your children to have a platform to really talk about financial literacy. How you and your wife maneuver in terms of overall expenses and living within your means and everything of that nature. And again, obviously the credit game and things like that. So I say all those things, right, to combine all into one, because it leads me to my final question. And that question that I have for you is a question I've asked everyone that's ever come on the show, Define Legacy. That question is, how do you want to be remembered?
That's a very, very good question. And I'll tie this into for what you were just saying. What I want to do, right, is take away some of the excuses. I want to, as we was growing up, right, there may have not been anybody talking about finances. Well, get this message out, get this podcast out, get, the events that's happening on finances, get this out because they're actually happening. And you can't say that, hey, you didn't have an opportunity to attend these this is free information. This is free events for people that has done it and are continuing to do it. So how I want to be remembered is, I want to be remembered as honestly, just like and I talk about this before, as a father in the community. I want to be talked about as a family guy in the community, somebody that actually was able to excel, beyond the obstacles, beyond the difficult times, to be able to continue to get better over time and to bring people together. That's been one of my goals, is just to bring people together and learn how to understand how to deal with difficult situations and different barriers and be able to break those things down so that we can be able to move forward together as one and as a group.
Yeah. And as a group, as a community, again, as a whole team, we can do it, right? I think that was the point of this entire show and just the overall movement, is understanding that we as a people, we can do it too, right?
Mhm.
Like this idea of wealth and investing is all starting to, I feel like, change in front of our very eyes when you combine the access that we have to information and the knowledge that we have, and on top of that, the opportunity that we
Mhm.
have to take advantage of it. It's never been a greater time to make money, and as a Black person, I strongly believe that. But if you could, man, drop your social media, I guess, or where people can find you. The address of the store again, so that people
Yep.
can kind of know where to find you and just either ask more, tips about credit or whatever the case may be. But feel free to let people know where to find you.
Definitely. I'm very active on more on Facebook. So you can reach me at Facebook. It's under my name, Demetrius Chamblee. Also on Instagram under my name as well, D Chamblee. Our store address is 1390 Park Street, and that's Hartford, Connecticut 06106. That's Madam's Beauty Supply. We also have our book club, Revolution of the Mind book club, where we operate off of a Facebook group. Anybody can join, and that's an open invitation. Also, any of our investment clubs, we are looking for new opportunities. Ashe Investments, we're actually have the door open for silent investors. So anybody that wants to get in and you don't have to do any work, you want to become a silent investor and be with us as we build inside of the community, that's an open door as well. So just reach out to me and let's build together.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you don't mind, spell your last name. I'll leave like the contact information in like the link in bio, but just so people know where to find you.
Perfect. Yep. So first name Demetrius, and last name is Chamblee.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Are there any final words you have for our lovely audience of Defiant Legacy before we let you go?
Final words is just let's build together. That's it. Let's build together. Umoja. Let's continue to come together and rise together as one. Yeah, so I just wanted to give a special shout out, right? Special shout out to your mother. Your mother connected us. Your mother has been a firm supporter of me and my wife, our business. She's been a firm supporter of me. She comes out to all of our events and just continue to support us. So, I got to thank her. When we first met, automatically she talked about you. She was like, hey, I got to connect you with my son. He is great. He's doing this, he's doing that. And, we started speaking throughout the text. So I just want to say shout out to your moms. She is immaculate, and much love, much respect for her.
Appreciate it. Now, just officially, now you all will be a Define Your Legacy alumni. So definitely,
Okay, let's
much
get it.
around right now. Two guests that have been on the show. So definitely appreciate the two of y'all. Appreciate
Thank
it
you.
for sure. And on the Define Your Legacy front, y'all, you already know, subscribe to Theus Elijah on YouTube. All right, Define Your Legacy with an underscore on Instagram. Define Your Legacy on Facebook. DYO Podcast on Twitter. Theus Elijah on TikTok as well. And again, all episodes of Define Your Legacy drop Thursdays at 8:24 a.m. Eastern. All right. All episodes of Define Your Legacy drop everywhere on Thursdays at 8:24 a.m. Eastern on Theus Elijah YouTube, as well as Define Your Legacy on Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify. Demetrius, we appreciate you for being on the show. This was a fire conversation.
Yeah, I
Fire
loved it.
conversation. It was a good mix of just life overall, but as well as credit gems. And definitely appreciate you again for being on the show, man. Just like that, y'all, we gone. Peace. Stay blessed.
Peace.